In this video, we're going to discuss how to use impromptu speaking for job interviews. So first of all, what is impromptu speaking? Well, if we were to define impromptu speaking using the most commonly used communication textbook, The Art of Public Speaking by Lucas, he says that it's a speech delivered with little to no immediate preparation. Now, when we look closely at this definition, we can unpack it a little bit. What I want you to focus on here, though, is immediate preparation. What that means is that you may have prepared quite a bit in the past, or maybe even just the ability of you to have life experience can make it so you're ready to deliver this speech. But what really happens is you don't know what happened, what the topic is, or what's going to need to be spoken about right in that moment. So no immediate preparation, but you could have prepared beforehand in a variety of different ways, which is what we're going to look at now. So first of all, the ways that you can prepare, we're going to look at different categories that the topics might show up, and then also a framework for examples. Now, you can do this with anything. We're doing this for job interviews here, but really, if you think about any situation, you can really limit the number of things that could possibly be talked about, and then prepare yourself in a similar manner to what we're doing here. So first of all, with categories of job interviews, and again, this is not an exhaustive list, but if you prepare this way, you'll be ready for 95% of what's going to be thrown at you in pretty much any interview situation. This is from interviewquestiongenerator.com, which is a website that is directly part of LinkedIn's infrastructure. So LinkedIn actually sent us over here. So here are some categories for job interview questions. Are you flexible? And then we have different questions that are going to come up with each of these. And you can go to interviewquestiongenerator.com. I'll put a link down here below as well, and you'll be able to check it out by just clicking on that to see these two. Culture, so this brings a new voice to the team. Collaboration, open-minded, affable, and organized. Leadership, influential, supportive, and guides change. Communication, great listener and articulates clear messages. I altered that one a little bit from what they said. Problem solving, synthesizes information to find solutions. Creative thinker, innovative risk taker, thinks outside of the box. Results driven, focused on success, uses data to optimize. Time management, organized and prioritized well. And the last one is growth mindset. Open to feedback and new ways of thinking. So all 10 of these different categories are areas where you're likely to see at least one interview question show up. So what we're going to do here is make it so you're organizing your thinking in a way where when something shows up, you'll be more prepared than had you not done this preparation. Okay, so the framework that we're going to be using is something that's pretty common if you just Google it. It's the STAR framework for examples. So first you're going to use discuss the situation, so describe what was going on. The task, so explain what was asked of you. The action, explain what it is that you did. And then finally the result, so discuss what happened. So notice this is an acronym, STAR. So let's say that we have that first topic of being flexible. Let's say someone said, the interviewer said, tell me about a time when you were asked to do something you had never done before. How did you react? What did you learn? So notice this is a pretty generic question, but it would apply to a lot of different, really any job that's out there. So here's an example of what this might look like. So for the situation, well, my job last year was a barista at Starbucks, and since I was one of the newer employees, I used to work the day shift. But when my manager was sick, I had to close the store. And what they needed me to do was to review the manual, go through all the checklists, and close out the drawer for sales for the day. So what I did was take it one step at a time. I made sure that I followed all the procedures and used the resources that were available. It wasn't as fast as my manager, but I was able to get it done. And the next day, the morning manager let me know that everything was done correctly. I ended up being given opportunities because of this for additional training and was eventually promoted to assistant manager. So you can see we had the situation, what was expected, what it is that you did, and again, it's about you in these interview examples, and then what was the result. Obviously, you want this to be a positive result, so you don't want to talk about, even if they say what was your greatest failure or something, then you don't want to talk about how terrible you are, anything like that. So you can see this as an example. So what you would do here is make a list of 3 to 5 examples for each one of these categories. So go through each, and you don't have to write the entire thing out, but just a couple of words that are going to bring these to top of mind. And really that's the key of this particular strategy. It's not that you never knew this information, and it's not that you have to study this information, but what you do need to do is bring it top of mind and then practice presenting it in an organized manner. Okay, so what you can do is you can go over to that website that I put down here in the description, and you'll be able to see they generate questions for you. So you'll be able to practice with some of these questions, and you'll have some examples that are already written out. So again, we're looking for specific things. Notice how the one that we talked about before, here this is an exact time where the manager was sick, right? So we're looking for specific examples as opposed to general examples or anything, just speaking kind of loosely like that. So here you would go through each of these, and ideally 3 to 5 different times where you've done something. Now there might be some overlap, which is okay, but ideally you're thinking about in work situations, when have you done any of those following things? When have you been a good communicator? When have you had to solve a problem? And if you don't have too much work experience, that's okay. Think about when you might have done this in an academic setting or maybe a volunteer setting or even in a family setting, if you can really loosely make the analogy to how this might apply to work. Okay, so you would go through each of these 10, write 3 to 5 examples, so just like a couple of keywords to make sure that you know what they are, and then go back and then use that STAR framework. So describe what was going on, explain what was asked of you, explain what you did, and then discuss what happened. The next step that you would do after this is you would work on, okay, let's say someone says, tell me about 3 of your greatest strengths. And then you can go back to your list here. Okay, you've got this list and you've practiced this. We know 3 things that you've got extremely, that make you look really good. So you can say, well, let me give you 3 different examples. And then you go back through your framework here and then talk about example number 1 with the situation, task, action, result, and then go into example 2 and then example 3. So notice once you're able to do this, you have a framework, you're able to organize your thoughts, and you're really just drawing upon the experiences that you have previously, but you're organizing them in a way that makes it so it's better for the interviewer to understand. It's easier for them to understand, and it also makes you seem like you know exactly what it is that you're talking about. Okay, so here's our foundation for this, and I hope that this works well for you. I've also put a handout in the description below that should help when you're writing out those examples for each of these categories. Okay, good luck. And if you get a job because of this, leave a note in the comments.